welkom terug. Nou gesels ons met Brett Anderson. Hy is die CATAN kampioen van Suid-Afrika. Hy kuier môre saam met ons om meer uit te vind oor die speletjie. En ons wil uitvind wat gebeur met die kampioenskappe wat nou onlangs, wel, nie onlangs, wat nou binnekort gaan gebeur. Good morning, Brett.
Hi, good morning.
Lovely chatting to you. Let's start with CATAN. That's how you pronounce it, right?
Catan. There's various pronunciations, but yeah, Catan is pretty good.
Tell us, for the viewers who don't know, what is CATAN?
So Catan is a strategic board game, and way back in the day, it kind of was a crossover game between all the way that old board games used to be played and new board games are played. So in the past, each board game had one aim. You did that thing, Monopoly, you got the most money. Risk, you beat the enemy. One thing, and you did that. Catan introduced multiple gameplay where there were different ways that you could win the game. As you can see, the board there changes every time. It's made up of all those little hexagon shapes, and every game the board is shuffled, and so you actually have to approach each game differently and change your strategy based on how the board is shaped, how other players make their moves, and so it takes a lot more thinking and strategy.
If someone's never played this before, I just want to know, is this one of those games that feel like it lasts forever? Like I feel that way about Monopoly, it never ends. Or is this like a quick game, like 30 seconds or something like that, or somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, so probably somewhere in the middle. I'll terrify you if I tell you that my longest game of Catan took about 7.5 hours.
Wow.
But for the championship, each game we played ended under an hour.
Oh.
But probably if you've got starter people, you're looking at about 1.5 to 2 hours, because there's thinking time delays the game, but the actual game plays is not too long.
Before we speak about this further, I just want to know, because so in order to get to being like the SA champion and going to the world championships, you must have had a love for board games from like an early age. Where did this love for games or board games start?
Yeah, I think I've got a very competitive nature, and so for me it's always about beating the game, beating the other person. I think that had a big part to play. But our family always used to play games. We used to play a lot of card games, and early on it was things like Monopoly, played a lot of Risk growing up, and then one of my youth guys introduced me to Catan, and it's a whole new level. Those people that love it, it just opens a whole new world of games, and the amount of games being created every year now are just unreal. So there's so much variety. There's different games that work for everyone. Like you mentioned, 30 Seconds and Monopoly are two different kind of audiences of games. And there's games for every single type of person, which is really great.
Brett, do you often try out the new games? So you just mentioned every year there's more and more games and a variety of games. Are you someone that would actually like walk around or Google or whatever, wherever you get these games and go, oh, well, I've never played that, I'll try that?
Yes and no. So there's a few online sites where I play games, and you can watch videos to learn how to play new games. But the best way to learn new games is to have a friend called Adil, who goes and buys all the latest games. The best way to learn a new game is to have someone who's played it before explain it. And so pre-COVID, there was a shop called Wizards, or it still exists, but they used to have game nights. And so you'd go once a week or whenever you're free and actually learn the games there. And probably the best thing I can say, my best lesson with gaming is don't buy a game you've never played. So you can look online and something could look exciting, and then you play it and realize it's not for you. So the best thing to do is find someone who's got the game, play it with them, realize that you love it, and get a copy, and have some mates that you play games regularly with. Because games of this length, you're not just going to pick random people, because often it can take 30 minutes to an hour just to explain the game. But once people know how to play it, then they jump in and you can have a really good time with it.
I think most of us made the mistake of actually buying a game before playing it and finding out that it's rubbish. But now let's talk about Catan. There's an element of chance, and then there's the strategy as well. It's not one or the other. It's a combination of them. How do you get to be the national champion and consistently so achieve consistent success in both those aspects and those elements? Things have to really fall in your favor.
Well, I think you just have to be really good. No jokes. So one of the biggest question actually at the Catan World Champs, which was at Malta last year, that I was fortunate enough to compete in, was this question between luck and strategy. What's the breakdown? And everyone has their own ideas, but probably most people would lean on 70% strategy, 30% luck. I add a different element which might kind of fall under strategy, but it's kind of the politics or the social gameplay. Because part of the game is it's all a resource game. You get different resource cards and you use those to buy things, and you can trade those with other players. And so part of the game is political. Like you can trade one of your cards for two of their cards, or they want something that you've got. You can make it really expensive. And so how nice you are and how you play the other players, there's a huge political aspect which people often undermine. It's not just about the game. And then if you're doing the politics well and if you're doing the strategy well, if the luck falls your way, over a number of games, you will do better. And so the format of the competition is really important. So every person played 4 games, and then the top 16 people go to the next round. And that's a really consistent way of making sure that the better players, even if you have one bad game, you can kind of work it back from there.
This is like the Survivor of board games, it sounds, if you speak about how political it is and how you have to get alliances.
100%.
I want to know, so let's just go back to the South African Championships, for example. How popular is Catan in South Africa? How many people would, for example, take part in the South African Championships?
So I think Catan is actually quite popular in South Africa, and I think the championships struggled in terms of communication, in terms of people finding it. So there's a lot of people that play. Last year or the year before, when I won, I think we had only about 24 people took part. So it wasn't the biggest competition, although they had one in Joburg, and then some people flew down from that as well. So your pool gets a little bit bigger. But if you take something like Singapore, I think they had 174 people competing in their final. If you take something like the States, they've got their Chicago final and their LA final. So then you're drawing from a pool of like thousands of people, and then the top people come together and meet. So each country has kind of different range of players. And what Solar Pop and other board game people are trying to do in South Africa this year and beyond is increase kind of both the gameplay and the knowledge of Catan. And so I think this year's competition, which is in Joburg, next year's, which is in Cape Town, we're going to have a much wider pool of people playing, which is great.
We continue our chat with Brett Anderson all the way from Cape Town, isn't it? Waar vries jy so, Brett? It seems like it's cold where you are.
Yeah, I'm in Knysna at the moment doing some work with Heartlands, and it is very, very cold.
Yeah, I can just imagine. I'm looking at the weather forecast, and I can't take it. Now, Brett, let's talk about the World Championships that you went to last year in 2022. You ended up being 8th overall. That is the highest position any South African has ever achieved in the Catan World Championships. How was the competition there?
Yeah, I've got to speak to my press people because I'm actually number 7.
Ah.
Yeah, anyway, it was exciting. So the 2 South Africans that I knew that had gone before had come 42nd and 48th. And so my aim was, if I finish top 20, top 10, I've done well. And there were, I think, 87 people from about 38 different countries. And as I mentioned, there was a round robin where each person plays 3 other people, and you have 4 games of that. And going at the end of the first day, going into the semifinals, I ended up somehow being the number 1 seed. And that kind of blew my mind in terms of expectation. And then in the semifinals, had a really tough game and came 2nd. And so overall ended up being 7th in the competition. But yeah, just to be able to meet all these amazing people that love the same thing you do from other countries. The people were so generous and so friendly. I'm still in kind of conversation and engagement with a whole bunch of them. So that was really the prize, was having this trip to Malta and getting to meet all these people and play something you love with people from different countries that have some different styles and ways of playing, and just get to hang out with them as well.
And that's the thing about a board game like Catan. I think it's the sense of community it creates. People across the planet, across the globe, becoming one part, one community. Is that a big thing? Is the Catan community a closed community, or is it rather open? How does it work?
Yeah, so the board game community in general is very generous. I spent some time in the States about 10 years ago, and you walk into a board game shop with strangers, and they will welcome you to the game. They'll explain the rules, and Catan is just a beautiful part of that. The designer of Catan, who was actually a dentist in his previous life, and he sadly died earlier this year, Klaus Tauber, he opened the games and he spoke at the conclusion of the games. And his desire was just to bring people together, to have families and communities coming together. And Catan really is that. It brings people together in a way of community. And so if you came up to at Comic-Con in Cape Town this year, we had a stand where we were just teaching people how to play, and people just flocked to the space. And we had so many people that just kind of generously like invited strangers to sit with them and play. So that is a beautiful aspect of the game.
I was going to ask, if you want to expose people to this game, where do people go? Comic-Con in Joburg. When is the next South African Championships? How do people get involved with this game?
Yeah, so the national champs this year is going to be, I think it's at the Johannesburg Expo coming up next week or very soon, actually.
Yeah, the 22nd, I think.
Yeah. And then next year it's going to be in Cape Town again. So I'm unfortunately not going to be there this year, but I will pick it up in Cape Town, see if I can reclaim my crown there. But there's lots of board game places. I know in Cape Town there's a number of board game shops that have like a Tuesday night or a Thursday night. And so if you just Google where can I play Catan, you'll likely find some places. But also, as I mentioned, if you've got a friend that plays it, just get somebody who knows how to play to teach you how to play, and it will grow from there. After we did the nationals in Cape Town last time, we opened a WhatsApp group called Play More Catan, and so every now and then we get together at someone's house and have a few games.
Now, the National Catan Championships is going to be the 22nd to the 25th. It's Comic-Con. It's going to be at Comic-Con, and there's only, I think, 100 spaces open for people who'd like to be part of the championship.
Yeah.
So it's no, you first.
No, I think to say only 100 spaces, I don't think you'll have 300 people queuing for it, because I think we've still got work to do in terms of spreading the word and letting people know where they can play. Because as I said, I think there are lots of people that play, and I think what we have work to do is getting them to the places where it happens, and have more people playing.
Brett, it is lovely seeing that there's, like you say, the sense of community, that there's a sense of openness. It's something that we're losing, hey, as a community as a whole. We're losing touch with each other. We're losing the contact. And if board games can fill that role in our community, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people think about board games, there's kind of a mindset going in. But like I said, Catan was the gateway to new games. And so the interesting thing about meeting all these people in Malta was that many of them aren't playing Catan anymore because they've moved on to so many other games. And the games that kind of the game I play, one of them is called Terraforming Mars, and that's probably like a 3-hour game. And so there really is a lot of time to hang out with people. And there are terrifying games that are 6, 7, 8 hours. And what a lot of people do is, like I say, you have your pool of 8, 9, 10 people on a WhatsApp group, and you say who's free on Thursday, and then you've got the same kind of group of people just meeting regularly to hang out and play some games.
It's nice. It's just good to see that people get together nowadays and age. It's lovely. Brett, thank you very much for joining us. You're obviously not competing in this year's national championship. You'll do next year. But to all of those who are competing, good luck, and we support you, and we hope things go well. It is, after all, like you say, 30% chance, you say. So let's hope the odds are forever in your favor. Thank you very much, Brett. Don't freeze in Knysna.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Lekker. As dan Brett Anderson. Hy is die Suid-Afrikaanse kampioen vir Catan.